what do you mean when you talk about a household? Because don't we all already, doesn't everybody live in a household basically?
Right. Yeah, that's a question that's an ancient one. If you go back to, Xenophon's Oikonomikos, he starts off the dialect, Socratic dialogue, with that very matter. So there's always been some confusion concerning what are we talking about when we talk about a household? Talking about physical structure? Are we just talking about something that's synonymous with family? But throughout, Western history anyway, and I think even beyond that, the distinction is between, say, an institution which shelters not just people, but also other things like productive activity and actual property. So sometimes people would refer to it, at least in English-speaking countries, as an estate. But you can still see the use of the term household even in our tax code. When you say, I'm head of a house, head of household. So there's still, I think, some sort of usage, at least legally, to this institution that shelters people, and it doesn't sort of entail dwelling in a particular institution, which has some physical assets, which can include physical buildings. But what we're really talking about when we're talking about a household is a kind of a authority structure, which is something that does house families, but can also include more than just simply people who are related by blood. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's the way I use it.
So what would be an example? What would be the difference between like when you talk about a household and like what we would mean today? So like I live in a house, I have my family. Is are you talking about that, or are you talking about something beyond that, or more than that?
Well, I'm talking about something more than that. It's always included what you just described. It's always included family members living together. But over the course of the last few hundred years, certain things that were considered necessary to having a household and having it work have been kind of hived off or outsourced. So an example of that would be productive work. So, in household, historically, the household was understood to be a place where people were doing productive things, things that would, help them, live, earn a livelihood, or just subsist, as in terms of a subsistence economy.
Yeah. So like a farm, or a blacksmith shop or something like that. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah, so I think about it, it's interesting, that term oikonomos is where we get the word economy.
Right.
And so the household, the pre-industrial world, and essentially economic production took place in basically home-based. I didn't want to call it a business. Probably people didn't even think of it as a business
Right.
in a lot of ways, but sort of a home-based environment where a lot of productivity took place. And how did you get interested in this topic of the household?
Well, one of the things that inspired me to look deeper into it was the fact that, family life in the Western world has been undergoing some tremendously disruptive change. And so as I saw this, and I'm not the only person who's observed this. I noticed that most people, in their attempt to defend the integrity of households or family life, maybe that's a better way to put it, would go directly to either psychology. In other words, a family is a place where we feel secure, or where everybody feels like they belong, or people can enjoy each other's company, those sorts of things, or pedagogical. There's pedagogical sort of activities, like raising children, teaching them how to be virtuous and be productive members of society. But it seemed to me that something about that needed to be further enhanced, or maybe a better way to put it is I saw that there was something that wasn't being talked about, that I had grown aware of through my studies with regard to particularly the Western political tradition. So, like when we think about, say, Aristotle's politics or his ethics, he addresses the household in a more capacious way, fuller way. He refers to its sort of political functions as a household participates in the polis, or he talks about its economic functions. And those were things that many people, like a person like James Dobson, I don't know if some of our listeners remember him, but
he's not from that long ago. He's not that long ago. Focus
right.
on the family.
Right. Focus on the family. He was always, focused on what I noted earlier, the psychological dimensions of the household or the pedagogical functions of a household. But he never got into these other things that Aristotle talked about. Mm-hmm. But that other stuff was sort of like the bread and butter of households for thousands of years around the world, not just in Western culture, but in the East and even in, the Americas and Africa and so forth. So I wanted to understand that more. And so I did a lot of work, did a deep dive on, sort of the household as an institution that had political and economic functions in a society. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized, wow, I think that this stuff is still relevant and still very important. And maybe I should just kind of try to bring that wisdom from the past into the 21st century and try to apply it.